Everyone, welcome back to the workshop, and today we're going to be looking at another accessory that will fit on any number of diode lasers, and that is the Atomstack Maker AC1 camera accessory that works with Lightburn. So this is a camera that will allow you to get your overlay and to do your positioning, and the way they have made this is very adjustable. It has a very large clamp here on the bottom that allows you to attach it to most any diode laser, and so we're going to take a look at this, see how it fits on a few lasers, and then we're going to test it out on our Atomstack A20. So if this is something you're interested in, stick around, we're going to check it out. All right, let's talk about this camera assembly. It comes in three pieces. You've got your base clamp here, and this is what makes it very adaptable to many lasers. It's got this clamping section here that is about 150 millimeters, or about almost 5 inches of distance here. And then it's got on this bottom cup and on this inside lip, it's all got a rubberized coating. So you'll be able to slide this up against your frame, clamp it down, and that's the rubberized coating's really gonna hold it in place. Or if you don't have that and you're working on a table, you can put this on the end of the table, clamp that to there, and then adjust your laser frame to the table and get your camera in place. The rest of this, it has a very nice boom mount that is very adjustable. So it's got two knobs back here. The one on this side allows you to slide this in and out as well as rotate it at angles. And then the one on this side will allow this to slide up and down, making this very adaptable. But then the real key part here is this ball head on the end. This allows you to adjust not only the rotation, but the angle in both directions so that you can make sure that this is parallel and square to your work surface. All you do to assemble it is you need to screw the ball head onto this front boom here, and then you take this post, slide it down into here, and it's assembled. So we don't need to talk anymore about assembly. Let's start seeing how this fits on a variety of lasers. All right, so let's start out with the X-Tool D1. This is the original D1 frame, non-pro, but if you know the X-Tool machines, these are all pretty much the same frame, and so if it fits on this one, it's gonna fit on the Pro. And so here again, you know, we've loosened up the clamp here. This could then come around this backside and then just tighten this down and make sure, now it does have a little bit narrower span on top, so I'm kind of backing it off so this back piece isn't necessarily resting on there. But once you tighten this down and those rubber pads grip, that stays in fairly firm and it's not twisting. So then from there, all we would need to do is make our adjustments, you know, maybe slide this out a little bit and then possibly bring this down. What you're aiming for is about 420 millimeters from the bottom of your lens to the surface that you're going to be working on. But as you can see here, it's attached well and we can make our final adjustments there. But we're going to try it on a couple of the lasers yet. All right, here's another newer laser. This is the Atomstack P20. And so if you're familiar with this laser, this has a very thick frame, top to bottom and front to back. So there's a lot more meat here. But one of the concerns with some of the other accessories out there is that these rails are very thick. And so let's take a look at that. Once again, we have this back mount, so we're gonna need to open this up a bit more. Then we can slide it on. This one though has plenty of depth to it so that we're able to get more contact with this whole clamp, so we're able to get that whole C-box in there, and then we're just gonna go ahead and tighten this down. Once again, that's very tight. So again, we can make our adjustments. We can bring this down if we need it, and then we can adjust our ball head. And there you go. Again, it's on very securely. Now there is a little bit of wiggle, so you do want to make sure that once you have this in position, you really tighten these down as best you can. There's going to be just a little bit of wiggle, but it should generally stay in the same spot. So that's a couple of the more popular lasers. Now let's get this on the Atomstack machine and let's actually get it calibrated and test it out. All right, so we've got the Atomstack A20 Pro here, and a lot of the Atomstack frames are very similar. So they have the 20 by 40 millimeter extrusion. The sides are vertical, the front and back are horizontal. And so we have a few options for mounting this. However, the way the Atomstack machines are, you're gonna need to mount this a little bit differently. So the gantry has your stepper motor that actually rides on the back here. And so when this comes all the way to the back, it actually overhangs this back bar here. And so if we were to put this in the back as normal, it's going to hit. And so what they recommend you do in the instructions is actually mount it up front. And so this is fairly narrow, so we're going to need to tighten this back down. But that is the nice thing about this whole mount, is that everything is really adjustable in all the axes, so we can actually play around with the placement a bit. So what we would do is we would take this, and the way they show doing it is putting it right up here, front and center. And then, you know, you're gonna make your adjustments here. This is obviously gonna need to come back a little ways because it needs to be in the center of your work area, and then we would adjust for height as well. However, what I wanna try, since this is flexible, my concern with this setup, if you're using it in the open, it's probably gonna be fine. But if you're using it into an enclosure, your opening is usually gonna be in the front, and so that's gonna block access to your material in your work area. So what I wanna try is to actually slide this over to the side here as far as we can. Now you do have the foot that kind of comes up a little ways, so we can only come over so far, but we can do that. That's going to allow us a lot more space here. So as you can see, we have more area to move things in. And due to the design of this, we can just simply rotate this to an angle to bring it approximately to the center. We can slide this back out, again, getting it approximately in the center. And then we can just rotate our camera in whatever direction we need to, mount that way. And so there we have the same result where the camera is square and parallel to the middle, but it's off to the side just to help us not block all of our access to our working area. So let's go ahead and actually get the honeycomb and everything else set up under this. We'll get it plugged into the laptop and get it aligned. What we need to do is a couple things. We need to come into Lightburn here and make sure it's seeing our camera, and then maybe kind of just tweak the position of it. And then they provide these kind of tag board squares, which we'll put in the corners in the center, and that will help us with our alignment and then do our calibration tests. So what you want to do is you come over to camera control, and at the top here you're going to see that it says camera none. Now, if you're using a laptop like myself, you're going to notice that it's going to have a built-in one as well as the others. So on here, you can basically select one. That's going to be us right here. You can see us. So obviously we want to switch over to the second one. And so now you can see in our preview pane here, it's a little crooked. And as a matter of fact, it's rotated around. So I'm going to make some adjustments to this. So we're going to loosen up the ball head on this. And then I'm going to go ahead and just spin this around, and then we'll start to snug it up and then just kind of make little tweaks to it until our image is looking square and centered as best we can. So you may need to adjust, like I think we need to come down just a little bit, so I'm going to loosen this and bring it down just a touch, and then we can rotate it forward. So you want to get that to where your image in here is looking fairly square. Now, kind of like that. And then it's filling up most of the frame. That's pretty good. You could actually probably bring this lower because we're actually outside the cutting extent here. But for now, we will start with this. We want to take these squares, we want to put one in each corner of our work area, like so. And then once these are in place, you really don't want to move them. Now they do provide some double-sided tape for the back as well that you may want to use, but I'm going to just try it without. And then we want to stick this one as best in the center as we can. Now the first thing they want you to do in Lightburn is come over and draw a square, and they want it to be, I'm going to come up here and adjust it, unlock this, so this should be 400 by 400, and we're going to lock that. And then we're going to draw lines that go from this corner down to the opposite corner. And then same thing over here. We're going to go from this corner to our origin corner. Then we're just going to set this up. We want our speed to be about, we're going to go with 2500. And this does not need to be that harsh, so I believe we're going to go with about 30% power. So now we can go ahead and run this, and it should just cut that line and show us our corners, and that's going to help us with our alignment. So we'll go ahead and hit start. One or more shapes are crossing the edge of the machine workspace and will not be sent. No, let's fix this. In this case, what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of these items. I'm going to simply shrink them by that much, keep them centered, and then we'll send it. There we go. Yeah, I just didn't like the whole 400 by 400. And that will put some marks down that will show us where our center point is and where our corners are, so that we can get our alignment grid and pattern set up just right. All right, now with all of this in place, we've double checked that our camera's still looking good. You want to come up here to our laser tools, and the first thing that we're going to want to do is you want to do the calibrate camera lens. And so we want to select the correct webcam, so double check here. Yes, that is the right one. We're going to want to select the standard lens, and we want to make sure that this is on none and do full calibration. The full calibration is very important to make sure that we get it as accurate as possible. So now we want to go ahead and hit next. Now they do provide this nice little alignment grid pattern. And so this is printed to the right size. However, you may, it's kind of on a glossy material. I don't know if you can notice that. That may give you a little bit of a problem. So if that's the case, you can print out your own. You just want to make sure that it is printed the right size. Don't print this full size, otherwise it will not recognize it. So let's go ahead and try it with this one first. And what it's telling you to do is you want to set the part in the center first, and then go ahead and hit capture. Noisy honeycomb visible, try again. All right, let's turn the honeycomb part off. Let's hit capture. There we go. And so here we're going, 0.32, and that's pretty good. So we're gonna go ahead and hit next. And now they want us to move it into the lower part down here. So we're going to place that there, hit capture. 0.61, not bad. We're going to go hit next. Now we're going to move this over to here.
We continue the calibration process by moving the pattern around following the example at the top of the window. And you'll notice a couple times we have to reset it just a few times, and then it eventually takes. Once this completes, it'll allow us to move on and complete the calibration.
All right, and that's it. It's done the lens calibration, and now we're going to do the alignment. So we're going to hit align camera. So we can pull this out of here. So again, we want to make sure we've selected the right camera. I'm going to use the same one. We're going to go ahead and hit next. All right, so here we want to just adjust these. We're going to go with 6,000. 6,000. We want to make sure the scale's at 200 for the 400 by 400 millimeter work area. And we can go ahead and hit frame just to make sure that everything's going to be in the right areas. Those look good. That looks good. Everything's good there. And once we're ready, we can just go ahead and hit start, and it is going to burn this image into our work area. Oh, you know what? So the 400 by 400 actually overlaps the extent. So we're going to go back, we're going to cancel this, and we're going to take this scale down to about 182. And with that, let's hit frame again. That should just pull them in just far enough that it has room to do everything. Obviously, the further out we have it, the better. That's going to give us the most, the wider the distance you're calibrating, the more accurate it's going to be. So now let's go ahead and try this again. Hit start. There we go. Now we'll let this run, and we'll be back shortly. So we're going to come back in here into Lightburn, go ahead and hit next. And what we want to do is move the camera up out of the way of all these, because we want to be able to capture all of those. And now we can go ahead and capture image, and it shows all four corners clearly. We're going to go ahead and hit next. So now on this image is where we help set the calibration. So we want to go to marker number 1. There we go. And we want to come over here to 2. Once again, we want to hit the center. You got to double click. Come over here to 3. Once again, hit the intersection. And then back to 4. And it is going to draw a box. And you want to come and double check, kind of make sure that these are in alignment with those lines on each one of them. If you need to make adjustments, you can go ahead and double click a point near it, and so it'll move it. But just kind of go ahead and check each one of these, make sure they're looking like they're centered along those lines. So this one maybe needs to come down like that. You see, we just moved that. Double check 4. This maybe needs to come over. Nope. There. And once you're happy with that, we go ahead and hit next. And that is it. The camera is aligned. So now when you're in your camera control here, you can go ahead and hit update overlay, and that is going to stick what it sees on your bed into your frame here, and we can start working with that. So now what we can do to test this is we can come in here and we'll zoom in on this one. We're going to draw a circle and hold down shift to make it perfectly round, and we're going to try to draw it to be the same size as that one. So about like that. And we'll go ahead and set this to, let's set this to a fill. So again, 6060 should be about the same as the others. Let's go ahead and frame that. Moving to the approximate location, and let's go ahead and send that. Zoom in a little bit. Let's go back to our camera control. We'll update overlay, and you'll see it's fairly close. It's a little bit just to kind of the lower right. And we see this gap here. We see that there, but you know, we're talking about within maybe a millimeter. So that's pretty good. Now you can play around with this. You can adjust it, so you can adjust your X shift and your Y shift. So if we did that, you notice as I move this, that image moves up, and then if we did this, nope, wrong way, moves over, and now that is a little more centered. So you can play with that. We'll leave that alone, and then let's go ahead and first we'll draw, let's take this circle, let's move it over here, and let's just draw that with a line quick. So we're gonna take our layers, change this back to black, and line. Go ahead and send that. Draws a circle. We'll hit start. Okay, and then let's camera control, update overlay. Now it looks about the right elevation, but maybe it's still a little too far to the right, so I'm going to go ahead and take the shift over once more. Let's draw this circle down here. Again, we'll update overlay. And there you see it's actually pretty good. It looks to be fairly centered on the line. So let's take this. Let's bring it over here. Do that one more time. Let's make sure it wasn't a fluke. We'll update overlay. Yeah, it's pretty close. Maybe a little bit of drift to the side. As you move further away from the center, you may get some drift, so this would definitely be something to check in your other corners as well. Let's go ahead and bring this up here. We'll hit start. That move back out of the way. We'll update overlay. We'll zoom in. And you see it's just slightly off to that side, so let's bring this over here. Hit start. Once again, update overlay, zoom in, and it's fairly on spot there. So as I was saying, it's going to be very close. I think they have a tolerance of about 1 millimeter or less on this, and so it's going to be really good for placing objects. But if you need precise precision, you're still going to want to use your normal framing and cross-referencing that way. But this is going to get you within about 1 millimeter or less. So let's go ahead and show this in a couple of practical applications. This is a good reason to save some of your scraps. I've got just 3 circles, so I'm going to just kind of toss them on the board there, wherever they land. So they are on the laser. And now we're going to come here in Lightburn. Once again, we want to update overlay to get our current setup.
Once we have the overlay in place, we can bring in our artwork. So I've found this little smiley face vector, so I'm just going to scale this down to fit inside of these little wooden discs, and we'll try to get this centered as best we can and stretch it out just so it fills up as much as we want. And then once we like the positioning here, we'll go ahead and copy it, and then we'll go ahead and paste it onto the other 2, aligning them just as we did this first one. We'll go ahead and send the job to the laser. You'll see it burns the first coin and then jumps over to the next one following on the third, and then we'll be able to check to see how closely they were aligned once it's done.
So as you see, there is some slight variations on here. And so what I may want to do is actually rerun the camera alignment tool and really try to get those numbers down even lower. And then even try the rerunning the camera, the alignment, both the alignment and the calibration. You can tweak with your horizontal shift if they all seem to be off in the same degree. But if it's too far off to your liking, rerun the calibration, rerun the alignment, and that'll help you dial it in. You know, again, this is going to get you within 1 millimeter or so, but it may be off a little bit, especially as you get to the outer edges of your working area. So just something to keep in mind. It's a really good tool. You can get it refined pretty close. But if it's something that's a real critical piece, I would still do your framing. I would still double check and maybe even set up a jig to be 100% sure it's going to be in alignment. So that's not the only thing we can do with this camera. I got a couple more things I want to show you, so let's jump right into that. So another thing that we can use the camera for is when you have odd shaped scraps, so like this kind of weird shape that I have, it's a cutout, we can actually use the camera to place our item in here to make sure that it is going to land on the material where we want it and maximize, you know, maybe some of our scraps. If you're very frugal and a hoarder, like some of us often are with our wood scraps, this will allow us to try to dial it in and use it. So let's put this on the laser and we'll show how that can work. All right, so let's go ahead. We'll throw our piece just kind of randomly in there. And I'm gonna turn our machine on. And then over here in Lightburn, I've removed the smiley face and modified it just a little bit so that we can do a scan and a cut. But first thing we want to do is come to our camera control again, and we want to update our overlay. That's gonna put that right in there, and actually that's pretty close for just tossing it on the bed. But what we'll do is let's grab all of this. Let's bring this over here. And actually, you know, let's stretch it out a little bit. Let's try to maximize how big we can get this out of this area. So that's gonna kind of maximize that little corner piece there. So we're gonna engrave the face and then cut out the edges. So we've got both my layers set to output. We got our speed and our power set up. So let's go ahead and send the laser away. So as you can see, really did maximize that space. There is a bit of an imperfection in this wood, and so that's why it didn't fully cut through up here. And so I'm not going to fault the laser for that, but you know, we were able to really maximize the working area of that, use up all of this material. So like I said, it's a way you can position your pieces and get them just sized just right for the material you've got left. Now, one of the other things you can do with this is you can actually use it somewhat like a scanner. So you can put an object in your laser bed and have it try to trace that object. Now, this is going to work best with high contrast items. And so one of the fun things to do with it is actually to take a piece of paper, and I just have some Post-it notes out here with me, but you could do this with a full letter size piece of paper or anything that fits in your bed. And you know, maybe give your kids a marker and just have them draw something fun. So, you know, we could do my really bad rendition of a cat face. We'll add some whiskers on each side. So there is my really rough sketch of a cat. Let's go ahead and drop this on the laser. We'll try to trace it out and see if we can actually engrave that then onto another material. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and place this down here right in the center because that's gonna be the easiest to get it. And you're going to want to make sure that is laying fairly flat. So, and then what we're going to do is we're going to come in here once again. We're going to update overlay. And then let's get rid of our goofy smiley face here. But now up here in the upper right in your camera control, we do have the trace function. So we can hit trace, and that's going to bring up your normal Lightburn trace window. And from here, what we may want to do is actually just draw our area that we actually want it to capture here. So we'll even bring that in even closer. And now you can fade the image to try to see it better. And now here we can, you know, work with our adjustments. Play with both your cutoff and your threshold to try to capture the drawing as best we can. Now here, if this was bigger and my lines were a little crisper, this would probably be a little easier, but we'll just play around with it a little bit, trying to get the best rendition. So I kind of like that right there. It's having a little struggle here where those lines are really blended together. But again, this is about a postage stamp size drawing. If it was bigger, it definitely would be easier. So once we're happy with that, we can go ahead and hit OK. And now you can see here, we have our nice vector outline based off of our drawing. So we can take that and we'll move our paper out of the way. We'll go ahead and grab another one of our scrap circles. These are always really handy to have when you're cutting circles out of material. Save some of them. You can kind of make some fun stuff with them. So we'll place that into our laser bed. Once again, over in our camera control, we're going to do update overlay, and then we're going to move this right onto our wooden coin. And I'm going to change that to blue. We're going to come back to our cuts and layers. That's set to fill. And so we can go ahead and turn the laser on. We'll let it home, and then we'll send the job. All right, so there you go. We took our drawing and we turned it into an engraving on one of these just blank round coins I've got. And so kind of a cool thing, something fun to get your kids involved with it. Just, you know, make sure to do it safely, make sure their eyes are protected from this. But, you know, it's a great way to get them involved in learning some things around technology and art, and they can be creative too. So that's 3 different ways that you can use the camera in Lightburn and how the Atomstack AC1 camera functions fairly well in doing that. So my overall thoughts on this are, I like that it is very modular in the fact that it will fit on a number of different lasers with this nice clamping mount. Is very adjustable with your different, you know, up and down, rotational, and that ball head really makes a huge difference in being able to do the fine tuning adjustment as well, while allowing you to, you know, set your mount at an angle, as a matter of fact, and still get it centered and square. My only disappointment in this setup was that it didn't include any Velcro or any other cable management. So I went ahead and used just some simple cable management Velcro straps, wrapped one around there, one here, and that just helps keep that cable out of the way. You want to make sure that it stays stable, it doesn't get bumped around, otherwise you are going to have to redo that camera alignment. So keep that in mind with how you have it set up and where you have it placed. And if things aren't running right, then again, you're going to want to rerun the calibration on it as well. So that is going to wrap it up for this video. I hope you found it informational, and if you are thinking about this one, have any questions, go ahead and leave a comment down below, and I will try to help you out as best I can. I will have links to this and other things seen in this video down below. Some of them will be affiliate links. They do go and help support me at no additional cost to you. It's great when you do that, but you know, really no pressure. I just enjoy checking these tools out, checking this technology out, and sharing the information with others. If you enjoyed this, I would appreciate it if you hit that thumbs up button. And if you want to see more, definitely hit that subscribe button as well. And if you really want to find out more, my friend David over at the Clack Shack and I, on Sunday nights, we do a Sunday evening live stream. It's our laser graver community. We get together and talk about new things in our shop. We answer questions from people like you that are there live, and just generally have some fun. So if that sounds good to you, definitely check that out as we enjoy the interaction in real time with our viewers there. Anyway, that is it. I hope you enjoyed this. I'm glad you stopped by, and I hope you can get out into your workshop and make something too.